Welcome back to Watford's Black Pioneers podcast. This is our third episode, and today I'm joined by Marvin Sordell. Marvin, thanks for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you with us. This Black Pioneers podcast, which is going to grow. It's growing quite a bit, and I know it's going to grow some more. So we're really interested. I'm really interested as we start. Going way back. Well, not way back. You're not as old as me, but going back to the young Marvin Sordell when you first found out that you had a little love for the game. When was that?
I mean, that feels way back. This is like 20 plus years ago, so it's a long time.
Like I said, if you're as old as me, it would be, yeah.
I think just playing at school with friends on the playground. Just enjoyed kicking the ball around, running around as a lot of kids do, and yeah, I think I just got the bug for it. Like none of my family were interested in football whatsoever.
None
at all.
Okay.
And I still remember the first game I ever watched, which was FA Cup final '98. So I was 7. Arsenal beat Newcastle, which then obviously I was an Arsenal fan. I used to love Ian Wright and Nicolas Anelka, and then Thierry Henry.
Yeah.
And it was then when I was like, that was one of the first moments I thought, wow, this is what I want to do. I want to play football. I want to be a football player.
How old would you have been then?
7.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and so I did say that, and my mum was like, well, it's not a real job. So
That one.
yeah, they do it now straight away. I was Nigerian, so it's like, what do you mean? What do you mean play football? Would you like a game as a job? No.
Wow. That was the approach?
Yeah.
Right, okay. How did you navigate that then? How did you almost convince, we'll talk about family in a minute, but how did you convince her that, I'm quite good at this?
I mean, I didn't even know I was good at it.
Right.
Because how do you know? I mean, as you get older, yeah, for sure, I guess you get an understanding that what you're doing is working, what you're doing is good, but especially at that age, you don't know if you're good. You don't know what is good, do you know what I mean? Because you just try to do things. For me, I wanted to score goals. I ended up getting put in goal because there was no space in the team. And
So hold on, this goal scoring centre forward is first off as goalkeeper.
As a goalkeeper, yeah, because I've gone to play with my friend. One of my best friends he was playing for a team at the time. And I asked my mum if I can go join this team with him, and so we can train and play matches and stuff. When their first training session, they were like, we haven't got any positions available other than goalkeeper, so you can be a goalkeeper if you want. I was like, well, I just want to play football, so I don't really care. I actually did really well, and so I was a goalkeeper. From there, but after that session, he said to my mum, I was standing there, I still remember it to this day. He was like, yeah, we're not going to sign your son's. Insert swear word.
Yeah.
And I remember just being really, really down and upset and crying, and went to another team. And obviously they go, what position are you? Goalkeeper, because that's where I played. So from that point on, for a few years, I was a goalkeeper.
Oh, wow. When did you transition out of being a goalkeeper? I'd imagine at school you didn't stay in goal, did you? Did you go and...
Yeah, I still play, but I hated being a goalkeeper because for a number of reasons. But the main one was I hate mud. To this day, I hate mud.
You don't like mud?
I hate mud. Like, I don't know what he's just...
Isn't it lucky you played in the era when the pitches started to change then, yeah?
Did it? Because I don't know if you remember Watford when I was going through the pitch. Sorry, not good. I went and took my son the other week, and the pitch is very, very different. It's very different.
Yeah.
But I hate mud, so I didn't used to get muddy. I never used to dive, because if you dive, you get muddy.
What kind of goalkeeper were you?
So I used to just save everything with my feet. So if the ball's going high, I'd lift my leg up.
Really?
Yeah. So every single game, I used to just be clean as anything. Like, kids would be head to toe in mud because they just love it. And, I remember the coach saying to my mum, oh, why don't you let your son get dirty? And she was like, it's not me, it's him. And I was like, yeah, I don't like mud, so I'll stay in the goal and I'll kick the ball out of the goal. And to be fair, it was fine.
It worked. Yeah, it worked. So what changed then? So that attitude, by the way, it must be a great way to develop your control, the way that you strike the ball.
I've never thought about that, to be fair, but yeah.
What changed then? Along the journey, what changed?
In terms of
then losing that goalkeeping tag and then coming out and playing on the pitch.
At
what stage was that?
I was desperate to score goals.
Right.
I was there standing in goal, and I was like, I just want to score goals. I don't want to be here doing this, only scoring goals, celebrating. I was growing up watching Arsenal more and more at that point. Like I said, Ian Wright, Thierry Henry, Nicolas Anelka, and I was like, I want to be like them. And like even like watching Michael Owen in the World Cup.
Yeah.
So I want to just score goals, and I kept asking and asking and asking. They were like, "Oh yeah, we'll when there's an opportunity." And like the first time they were like, "We're winning comfortably in one game," and they're like, "Oh, you can be up front for the last 15 minutes." And I played up front. I scored a hat trick.
Wow.
And they were like, "Okay, where's this guy come from?" Because I was fast.
Yeah.
So I was fast and I could strike the ball quite well, and so I scored that hat trick. And they were like, "Okay, we need to find a new goalkeeper because this guy can score goals."
Wow. Okay. Let me take away from football for a minute, if you don't mind. Your family heritage, you said that your mum Nigerian, yeah? So just give us a little bit of insight into the family life as well, just at that young period when you started to realise.
So my family, growing up, it was always me, my mum, my sister. And my mum is a Nigerian woman, very strong woman. And for her, the most important thing was education. Always, so football was always low down the list. Football for me was like my
your goal, your vision.
No, it's like, so it was like what's the word for it? It's like a gift almost. Like it's football was my reward. Football's my reward for being good at school. So if school wasn't good, you could not think about football. It's not happening.
Yeah.
So like, because of that, I was always focused on school anyway. I didn't particularly like it, but I was quite fortunate that I didn't find it too challenging. So education was always important, being respectful and well-mannered. Those are the things that I was raised up on.
Brilliant. And your sister? What's the age gap between you and your sister?
My sister's 5 years older than me, so my sister was not like almost like a second mum in a sense.
Yeah.
But my sister and I are really close, and I've always had a really good relationship. And I think especially the younger points of my life, like my starting to get into football, my sister was the sat-nav, before sat-nav. So reading the A to Z, she'd be in the front. She'd give up so much of her time, especially her Sundays early on. But like, allowing my mum to give a lot of energy to me and to going to play football, whether it's training during the week in the evening or on the weekend. And obviously that increased more and more as I got older and went into academy football as well. But, I'm very, very lucky to have a sister who's so supportive and always there for me.
It must be amazing, that your sister would do that as you search for kind of the goal that you've driven yourself for. At what point did you realise that actually this is more than just fun? This could be something that, elevates you into a career journey?
I would say after I'd signed for Fulham, so I'd already been on trial at Chelsea. That was the first place I went when I was under 13. Didn't get in. I didn't expect to get in. I just wanted to learn as much as possible, and then went to Fulham the following year and signed after about a week. And then I'd say not even that year when I signed, the year after, when I got into under 16, so as an under 15, and you get shouted at a lot. And I was like, okay, this is some real stuff now.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
This isn't just like, I could just enjoy myself, I can have fun, I can score goals and stuff, and just enjoy my football. It's like, this is serious. Like, we're preparing to go to the next stage, which is obviously full-time football. And I didn't enjoy that so much, to be honest, because football was the thing that I just always loved. Football was like my safe space. So it was a bit of a shock, I would say, at that instance, because I guess as well because of the person who the coach was at the time and how he managed players, but also managed me as a personality. It wasn't really great for me, and I guess my own personality and my own development and growth. But see, that's something I learned down the line as well.
Did it knock your confidence at all? Did it knock your belief? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's strange because I always knew I was going to be a professional football player. If you asked me at 6 years old, 7 years old, up until I became one, I always knew I was going to be a professional football player.
So stop right there, because remember, you've told us you were going to be a goalkeeper, or you was a goalkeeper. What was it then that gave you that inner belief that you was
No idea.
always...
I have no idea. Because if you ask me if I was a good player, I'd say I don't know.
Right.
And that's probably the same up until I was about... It probably took me until about 25, 26 to think, actually, I'm all right.
Right. Despite what you'd kind of achieved in the game, which
Didn't matter.
the achievement is becoming a professional footballer, isn't it? And then you keep knocking down barriers, I suppose.
Yeah, but then like, you know, football's a strange industry in that you never have a moment to stop, be still and reflect on like where you are. It's always what's next. It's always what's next. And so it's only until you finish really, or you get towards the back end of your career, and you're like, actually, I've done all right. You know?
Okay. Let's go to 2007, I believe, which I think is the beginning of your connection with Watford Football Club. Am I correct?
I don't know.
Don't know what year. So you joined. You joined in the scholarship years, yeah.
Yeah.
How did you get? So how did you leave Fulham to get to Watford?
So I was released from Fulham.
Right. Okay.
I didn't think I was very good, which is fine. And I went to exit trials. I went to all 3 exit trials across the country, and
just explain what those exit trials were.
The exit trials basically the opportunity for every player who's released across the country, I think professional clubs, Football League and Premier League, get the opportunity to go and play in none of 3 exit trials. They sign up, and then you get put into a team on the day, and I think the games are like 2 20-minute halves. I think we play 2 games of 2 20-minute halves.
Right, okay.
And if you've just chosen to play one, that's it. That's kind of like make or break. And there's loads of scouts there watching, and it's your opportunity to impress.
So what pushed you down that route, or did you think that was a natural way to go to try and achieve, again, that dream?
I just wanted to be seen by as many people as possible, you know, because I was like, well, I haven't got anything on the table. It's not like I'm leaving Fulham to go and sign for whoever. I've not been offered anything. So how do I be seen by as many people as possible, and how do I prove that I'm a decent player? And so I went to the exit trials. At that point, I played up front for the whole time, for years at this point. And I said I want to be a winger because I want to get as many touches of the ball as possible.
Right, okay.
So I thought, if I play as a striker, potentially, bearing in mind everyone's in the same position, everyone's playing to show they're a good player. Everyone's going to be probably slightly greedier, more selfish, you know, because in the end of the day, it's their future, no one else's. And so I wanted to be a winger so I didn't have to rely on service from people, and I could try and show some of my abilities. And I managed to do that. I managed to score a few goals, and I had quite a bit of interest at that time as well. And Watford were obviously one of them.
So why Watford? What was it about Watford that you thought, yeah, that's the one club I want to sign for?
Do you know what it was? I came at the back end of the year that the club were in the Premier League.
Right.
And obviously I realised that the club had a track record of bringing players through the academy, coming down from the Premier League, but still remaining, I don't know, it was Cat 1 academy.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but it was a nice level. It was a highest level academy at that time. And the track record, the fact that the club were coming down to the Championship, so probably lose a bit. I don't think they were looking to bounce back at that time straight away. So they were going to lose a bit in terms of amount of players in the first team and rely on younger players, free transfers, etc. And so I thought, okay, there's an opportunity there, potentially as a quicker route to the first team than some other places.
So you strategically worked out your route almost as if this would be the perfect place to land, to give you that opportunity to showcase that talent again.
Definitely, yeah.
Brilliant. At that age?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was the biggest thought process. The fact that as well, the club didn't have a reserve squad.
Right.
So the reserves were made up from part of the first team squad and under 18s.
Yeah.
So I knew that if I did well as an under 18, quite quickly, I would then be bumped up to the reserves, and then you have an opportunity to get into the first team very quickly. And my aim was to be in the first team or make my debut around 18, 19. And so to do that, if I was at another club which had a reserve squad, you're probably not going to break into the first team until maybe 20, 21, 22, where you actually get an opportunity to even train with them, let alone play. And I knew that I could be training with them straight away. And I did. I trained with them when I was 16 a couple of times.
That's fascinating. So you've finally signed, so you've got 2 years to prove your worth, yeah? What was it like being in the academy here?
I mean, I signed, and Mark Warburton was my under-16 manager.
Right.
Amazing coach, like really, really amazing coach, and I love training every single day. And then I guess coming in full time is a big jump from being at school and training a couple of evenings a week, and becoming full time where you're not a professional, but you are a professional.
Yeah.
Everything remains exactly the same. And for me, I found it very, very challenging because the workload was obviously significantly higher because you're training every day, you're doing double sessions and stuff, as well as college here and there. And then just being used to being like a professional in a sense. There's so much more to being a football player than playing football. And it can take some adapting to. And I think for me, it took a bit longer. So my first year was a complete write-off, to be honest.
Really?
I didn't do well. I didn't really score so many goals. I wasn't in a great physical condition. Mentally, I found it very tough. But, luckily I had 2 years, not doing one.
Yeah. Marvin, that's essential for the generation that's probably playing now, who think that, one, they are professionals at 16. Two, obviously, you've got 2 years to prove your worth. Nowadays, it could be 15 months because decisions are being made earlier. What turned it around for you that you kind of understood the pressure, understood the expectation to become a professional footballer during that period, particularly after you said the first year wasn't great?
What helped me understand that, I guess, was I remember I made my reserve debut, and Malky Mackay was the reserve manager, who, funnily enough, ended up giving me my debut.
Wow, okay.
And I didn't think I did too bad. And then after the game, he came in and he points at me and goes, "You'll never play for this first team."
Oh, wow.
I was like, cool.
Wow. No, you said cool, but surely that was a shock to you.
Like in my mind, I'm like, now I'm like, okay, cool. But like,
it's a shock to
it
your
was
system.
A shock to the system because like, okay, there's obviously a lot I need to do here.
Yeah.
That was early on.
Good advice or not good advice, or a good statement or not a good statement? Did it ignite something in you?
At the time, no. At the time, I think at the time it just added a lot of, difficulty. Because just things weren't going great. Like, it just so happened it wasn't going very well, and that was just another thing on top of it. So it took some time, I think, after that until I got to a point where I was like, okay, there's obviously a lot I need to do to make the jump, and the easiest time to make an impression, the easiest time to develop is in the off season, because you can push yourself and push yourself and push yourself, come back in pre-season and you can be another level ahead. And that's what I did. I went away and I was like, this is my only time to go and make it, to actually make it. And like, if I don't do it now, it's not going to happen.
Right.
So I just had to make it happen.
Is this like you spoke about with mum and your sister? Yeah. Did you like go into in-depth conversation about what Malky said and how it was going to drive you forward, or actually how it could have broken you?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really speak about that, to be honest. I don't even know if I even ever mentioned it to my mum.
Right.
But I think in the off-season, I only did speak about what I wanted, why I was doing what I was doing, why I wanted to become a professional football player. And it all goes back to, me, my goals as a child. And I wanted to be a professional football player. I wanted to play as high as possible and have a successful career. And so if that's what I really wanted, then I had to work for it. So it was quite simple at that point as well.
How did you make it as a professional footballer again? You've spoken quite a lot. I'm not going to use the term I want to use, because every day is an experience, isn't it? Every day is like on the road to getting to where you want to be. So when the club, and who was it that finally said to you, we want you to sign on the dotted line, you're going to be a professional footballer?
It's when Brendan Rodgers was manager.
Right.
So
you're naming a lot of big names in his interview.
Good coaches. So when he came in with Frank Lampard Senior.
Yeah.
Frank was he used to coach us a lot when I was in the youth team at the time, and he had a lot of confidence in me, a lot more than I had in myself at the time. He used to tell me, like, in training sometimes, he's like, I see a lot of Didier Drogba in you, and I was like, I don't know where you're looking, in the wrong direction. But
wow,
it's obviously very high praise at that time. I guess I was 17 or something, And then towards the end of the season, I think I'd felt like all of the pros had been handed out because a lot of my age group, a few of them got handed pros early. And it came down to the last day. There was 3 of us left, I think, that had decisions to be made on. And I was the last person to go in. And so I'm sat there waiting in the car park. One of the boys has gone in, come out, no pro. And I was like, okay. The other one's gone in, come out, no pro. And I was like, okay, I know where this is going.
Yeah.
And I've sat down and Brendan just, talked me through my game, basically picked me apart, told me I'm not very good for the whole time. And they said, but I'm going to give you a pro contract.
So there's something they saw in you that they felt they could work with. And that, what was the feeling like?
I was very confused. Because obviously he's basically sat me down and told me I'm not good at everything.
Right.
For, I don't know how, it felt like a lifetime, but it must have been like 5-10 minutes. He picked my whole game apart and then obviously said, I'm going to give you a pro contract. So I was like, I want to feel good, but I'm not good at anything.
Right, okay. Did it empower you, though, to then do again what you said you've done already, which is go away and work on your game and take the bits that he's kind of said to you and use it as a positive to fuel you, that ambition?
Yeah, massively, because, like I said, like before at Watford, there was an opportunity to then go straight into the first team. So I'm training the first team every single day. So if I'm training with the first team, I want to be in the first team. So my whole thought process was, now it's a road to get into that first team as quickly as possible.
Wow. How long did it take? When did you make your debut?
I made my debut as a first year pro. I think I don't know whether it was August or something. It was Sheffield United away. And came off the bench with 2-0 down. Lost the game, finished 2-0. I think I played like 20 minutes or so. I don't even know if I touched the ball, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
But I always say so you say, I don't even know if I touched the ball, whatever. The game passed me by almost, yeah? But I always say to players who say that now to me, like, I made my first team debut. Yeah, what? And they're like, yeah, I made my first team. And I'm like, do you know what? You have one more appearance than me. And I'm the one who, very similar to you, felt that my career journey was going to take me to the biggest stage. So I'm very envious. Even that 20 minutes, I'm very envious of you because I wanted to be in that stage where the big crowds, the adulation, and I didn't care if I touched the ball, to be honest. I wanted to be there. So it's the start, though, wasn't it? It was the start of a journey. How would you kind of sum up your time at Watford? Is that 3 years as a pro here? Think around about that, if I got my stats right. Maybe a little bit more.
I think so, yeah. Maybe less than actually. I wasn't in the first team for very long.
Right.
I think I played consistently in the first team for about 1.5 years before I left.
Okay.
Not long at all.
And you had a loan in there as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I went on loan to Tranmere that same season as a first year pro.
Right.
I loaned to Tranmere towards the end of
So
that
you made
season.
your debut and then went on loan?
No, I made my debut and then I played a couple of games. I scored my first goal, which was against Leeds in the cup. And then I started a game against Swansea, which was tough. What's your Swansea play like? Yeah. So that was my first start, and then I remember not being in the squad for ages. I think because there was quite a few injuries, and I had a bit of a period in the squad. Then I was just travelling basically for months and months, and then got to February. I went on loan to Tranmere for I think 2 months maybe. And then I came back and I played a couple of games towards the end of the season. Then the next season is when the club were looking to sign Troy, basically the whole summer.
Really?
And I'd done well in pre-season. So he ended up signing, I think, the night of the day of the first game, which we were playing Norwich. And because I'd done well in pre-season, I'd started most games. So I did well. And then that season, I had quite a good season.
You say quite a good season. How many goals in that campaign, can you remember?
50.
That's a decent season, isn't it? Did you feel good about yourself then, or was there still that pressure? You've got a Troy Deeney now in the building as well. Is there still that pressure that you're applying or the club are applying about doing better, doing more, never accepting that that's enough?
To be honest, I didn't feel any pressure at that time.
Right.
I used to just love playing football. And it was weird because so many of the players that made up the first team had come through the academy, and these are people you spend every single day with anywhere at that point. So like for me, it was just I'm playing football with my mates every day, and the club weren't the size they are now.
Yeah,
The club's obviously a lot bigger now. It's grown and developed in many different ways, and so it didn't even feel like there was that same level of pressure from the fans either, because it was just we want to compete, we want to do well, we want to try and stay in the championship. Those were the ambitions at the time. The club wanted to stay alive financially, so for me, it's just play football, enjoy it, score goals. Yeah, like I didn't feel like there was much pressure in that sense.
Okay.
And it didn't. I never felt any pressure as a football player really in that sense until I left.
Why did you leave?
I mean, there's many reasons. Some beyond me. I think one of the biggest reasons is the club needed me to leave financially.
Financially, yeah.
So, you know, I think at that point the club had to sell a player, you know, for a decent amount every year to survive, you know.
Right,
and at that time, it was both myself and Maps were the two players who were being talked about going. And seeing the January window came, and you know, I was the one who'd had a bid in like right at the end of the window, obviously. And then the opportunity to play in the Premier League came up, and you know, it's difficult. I think if I believed in myself more, I probably wouldn't have gone.
Right.
Because I would have just backed myself to go and play in the Premier League. But in my mind, I thought I may never get this opportunity ever again to play in the Premier League. In reality, I should have waited, and obviously the club got bought out. I think it was in the summer.
Right. Okay.
So I was like, cool, great. Would have loved to have played under Zola.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Wow.
But you know, everything happens for a reason, I believe, and hindsight is a wonderful thing, you know.
So you went to Bolton, is that right?
Yeah.
3 mil?
Don't know.
You don't even know the fee?
I mean, it didn't go to me, so still it's irrelevant.
It's a good shout. It's a good shout. So that's the end of your Watford journey. You did represent Team GB in the Olympics. Probably that season, was it? At the end of that season, yeah. What was that like? Was that you saying, again, obviously you'd made under 20 appearances, under 21 appearances, but this is in the Olympics. This is special. Or was it?
It felt very, very special because of the fact that I remember even being a kid at school, the day that we got awarded the Olympics, and I had a sticker on my window that said London 20. I mean, I don't think the logo was the same by the time we got to the Olympics, but I had the London 2012 sticker on my window from when I was in high school.
Wow.
Never even in my wildest dreams thinking I'm going to be a part of that.
Together, yeah.
I didn't even associate football with the Olympics. And so obviously I got the opportunity, was called up, and it's very different to any other footballing environment. So I played in the Euros for 21s, being away with England many times, and it's a very chilled environment. The Olympics is very, very chaotic.
Yeah.
And so my respect for athletes went through the roof, like just seeing the fact that they're able to perform and to stay so focused in such a chaotic environment in the Olympic Village, just like it's really, really amazing. Really, really amazing, honestly.
Did you enjoy the football part of it as well? They actually been on the pitch?
Partly, I think probably more so in hindsight, looking back again, like to be fair, most of my career I enjoyed looking back as opposed to at the time.
Yeah.
It was a difficult period for me emotionally anyway.
Right.
Because there's so much going on in terms of my well-being that I obviously later realized, but from when I joined Bolton for a couple of years, like so much went downhill.
Right.
And obviously that was in the middle of it, as well as the fact that that was the height of, you know, my career. And so people looking at me going, oh, you're that guy that's supposed to do this and you're supposed to be good and you're not delivering. And that, as I said, that was the first time I really, really had a lot of pressure on me especially from the outside, you know, because I don't necessarily have that so much from friends and family. To be happy and do my best.
Guys, I'm sorry. I'm freezing. I've got to go to the toilet. No, I am freezing. I don't know who told me not to wear my jacket.
You're freezing?
I'm freezing. I'm sitting here going like this, but what it does, it comes down to there, and then I'll need to go to the toilet. Is it all right to take a quick break? Are you all right with that?
Yeah.
Because I want to touch on mental health and racism. So that experience at the Olympics, yeah, brilliant. I thought I was going to be an athlete as well. So you're making me so jealous. Marvin, look, let's turn to the other side of your career almost, because you retired in 2019, 28.
Yeah.
And we were just speaking offline then, and you said you last played in April 2019. What triggered the retirement at such a young age?
To be honest, a lot of different things. There had been many points in my career where I'd considered not playing football anymore. The first was probably about 14, 15.
Right.
Then again at 16, 17, 22, I think it was. I was very, very close to retiring. I got to a point where I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go traveling and just, I wasn't even going to like officially retire. I was just going to let my contract run out and then just go off.
Sorry to cut in there. What triggered those moments then? Because everyone thinks that once you're a professional footballer, you're a professional footballer until whenever, yeah?
Yeah.
But you're saying to me there's various triggers at times that you wanted to just throw it all in.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, earlier, there's so much more to being a football player than playing football. There's a lot of politics. Football, I think, I don't know what it's like now. It's been a long time since I was in that environment in the change room and really, really immersed in it. Although there are a lot of things I see, especially in social media and stuff. But there are a lot of elements to it which are really not great. Especially for a young person who's still growing, developing, understanding themselves. And for me, a lot of it didn't make sense to me. A lot of it really, really pushed me in the negative sense. I think bullying is something that has been in football for such a long time that it's become the norm. We talk about things like banter. In some aspects, there are such things as banter, but there are things that people know isn't necessarily banter and crosses the line. I mean, historically, we're so used to accepting it because it's just what the previous has done and the previous has done, and it's just kind of like, it's a knock-on effect. And so a lot of those things I didn't agree with and I didn't like for, a lot of my career, bullying in many different senses, in terms of people who are quieter. I'm a quieter person, naturally, more of an introvert. So that was something that people jumped on a lot. Racism, racist banter happened, I should say, a lot. And then on top of that, politics, people who are in charge of your livelihood and can make any decision they want depending on how they feel, can sometimes be very difficult to manage. If people who just wake up and decide they don't like you can really alter the whole trajectory of your career. That's a hard thing to manage. And, I unfortunately had that a few different times in my career. And, for me, I didn't see football as being the be-all and end-all in my life. And I think when you're in the industry, especially, at that time, it was like, well, because everyone's a football player, because football is your identity, everything in your world is wrapped around football and being as successful a player as you can. Because of that, whoever is the person in charge, they hold the keys to everything in terms of your emotions, whether you play, whether you don't play. And I'll see that a lot of the time that links to your happiness and your purpose and your identity. And so you feel worthless without that. And so someone can make the decision whether you feel worthless or you don't. And, for a lot of players, for some players, it's not the case, of course, but for a lot of players, that is the case because they're so heavily emotionally invested in their careers. For me, that was the case up until I got to about 26, 27. I had kids. I started to explore other different things I had for many years before, but like really, really investing in exploring other things, in interests in outside of football. And I massively got to a point where I was like, this isn't helping me. This is really impacting my well-being to the point where I don't know if, one, I'm safe, and two, I'm going to fall out of love with the thing that I've loved my entire life. I don't want that. I didn't want that. And so I decided I can move on and, start a new career and start a new life in other ventures.
How tough was that decision then? I'll say it again, you're 28 years of age and you've obviously gone through a round of emotions in change rooms, outside of change rooms, or whatever else. But how tough was that decision to eventually say, that's it, I'm done?
It was tough, but it was also very empowering. Tough because, it's the only thing that I'd ever known and loved. And, my dream was to be a professional football player. And I was essentially turning my back on that. But at the same time, it was very empowering because I knew that, and still know to this day, that most players retire not on their own terms, and in a place where they're emotionally able to accept it. I had time to think about it, to consider it, to speak to my friends and my family, to emotionally prepare myself for, I'm going to retire. It's not just it's being thrust upon me. And then so that day happens and it's like, okay, now I can close that door. I can move on to the next chapter in my life and I can see what's going to happen moving forward.
I never forget when I read the news. I mean, we didn't know each other at that point, and Marvin Sordell retiring. And obviously I equate you to the age of my son. So I'm looking and I'm thinking, no, it's only... And then thinking there's got to be something else. That it's not a footballing decision as such. And we go into all these different things. You spoke about your mental well-being, but you also spoke there about racism in environments. How much of an impact did that have on you and potentially your decision?
Well, massively. It massively impacts your well-being, massively impacts your self-worth. If you were being looked at and treated as different just because of the way you look, and often talked down on, and some things are very direct and they're very much in your face, and you can call a spade, but there are other things that people have done or still do, microaggressions, and sometimes question your intelligence, your mannerisms, I think is a massive one, which I found very difficult because, like I said, I'm a quiet person, quite introverted. I think a lot. I think very deeply about everything, and when that's being misconstrued or taken in a way that is negative, or, label is thrust upon me because of how someone else has behaved in previous or maybe currently, that is something that's very difficult to deal with because straight away they just label you as something without even giving you an opportunity. And that obviously harms you in so many different ways, but more so in the fact that why they're labeling you as such. Why sometimes comments are made when, even though they're completely unjust, but the people make them because of, the stereotypes that they have in their own minds, You
spoke about identity there. It's a question I normally ask everyone, but I'm going to use it in a different way now. Since you've left football behind, how has your identity grown? Because like you said before, you are just the footballer, aren't you? You're put in a box, you're labelled, that's it. And then you've spoken about all the nature of everything else that comes with that. What is your identity now?
Just Marv. That's it. And that's by design. I do a lot of different things, and depending on who you ask, I can be defined in many different ways. I can be defined as an ex-football player, or a mental health advocate, or a filmmaker, or a marketer, or a public speaker, or writer, or whatever it may be. There's a lot of different things I've done intentionally because I don't want to be defined by any of them. I'm just me. I'm the person that people speak to and hopefully think is a decent person, first and foremost. Everything else, what I do, isn't my identity. It's just what I enjoy doing. And, it's what I do for a living.
I love that. You've spoken quite a bit about the impact of social media. Have your thoughts changed at all? Or what is your opinion around the nature of social media?
Social media has for a football player, it's gone significantly worse. I'm very grateful that I played it in a time when it wasn't how it is now, because even though, like I say, I'm quite quiet and introverted, I can also be quite hot-headed, or notoriously have been in the past quite hot-headed, and I think a lot of the way people interact on social media, just in general, and this is outside of football as well, is very much it's almost like it's not real. Like people treat profiles on social media like there isn't a person attached to it. And football is a massive example of that, and how people look at football players and look at football as an industry. It's like the players are just objects, so they're not even real people.
Yeah.
And so people talk to them and treat them in any way which you wouldn't speak to someone on the street, which is, to me, I don't understand it. I think it's just confusing to me how someone can approach social media like that. But it is very difficult, I can imagine, for especially a young player now coming through, and this is all they know. They just know that they're going to be abused. Like it's just a given, and so because of it, like, you know, what social media is there for, which is to empower people and connect us and show us in a more human way, in ways that previously, you know, it was unattainable. You know, football players were behind a closed door, other than if you saw them in person or you saw them on the TV. Whereas now you have like all these touch points with different people from all these different communities around the world, regardless of demographic, regardless of you know, status in society. So there are and can be so many positives to it. It's just human behavior.
Yeah, God's back. Look, we're finished. You've dropped some golden nuggets for anyone that's going to watch this, and I'm sure it will go far and wide. But you mentioned retirement, but you've come out of retirement, am I right?
You're not right.
I'm not right. You're still retired.
I'm retired.
But you have a shirt with a name on it now.
I don't think they normally have names on their shirts, so I don't think that was just a one-off.
But you have played. You played in the FA Cup.
And I'm still retired, yes.
How long ago did you play in the FA Cup? So this season?
Was it 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago. So you played for Kettering?
Yeah.
You've signed a deal, or?
No, just pay as you play, I think.
Play as you play. Have you played since?
I've not played since. I'll play. I've got another game soon. I don't know which game, but there's another one.
Right. So basically, you come out for the glory then.
No. The first game I played was, to be honest, actually, I don't even know who it was against. But the first game was an FA Cup.
Right. Okay. But you played in the FA Cup. In a momentous game, obviously.
Yeah. There's another one coming up.
Who have you got?
Doncaster.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So I might play in that.
You might play in that. You pick and choose, yeah?
No, it's just whenever I'm available.
Yep.
And then if they need me, they need extra bodies. Okay. And yeah, so one of my mates owns a club.
Yeah.
And so he wanted to get me in for a while, and I said, look, I'm a filmmaker and a marketer first and foremost.
Yeah.
Those are my priorities from a working perspective, my time, and then also I've got 2 kids.
Yeah.
And so when I've got my kids, everything else
comes into significance. Yeah.
And so I play football for fun. I love to play football. One of the biggest things about retiring was that I wanted to still love playing football.
Yeah.
And I've played football since I retired. There's probably a load of people who can say they've played against me, where it's on Sunday League, a Saturday League. Like when I retired, I played for a Saturday League, one of my mates' teams.
Okay.
I played Sunday League in Watford a few times. Yeah, I still play football. I love playing football, and hopefully that'll be the same until my knees are they're getting on.
Until they stop carrying you anymore. Yeah.
And you know, it just so happens that one of those games happened to be on TV. Sorry.
Amazing. Marvin Sordell, thank you so much for joining me on the Watford's Black Pioneers podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I'm sure that you'll be getting some plaudits off after this for many reasons. The way that you openly talk about your mental well-being, the impacts of racism in your space. But you know what I love is just you as a human being and your whole perspective on life and Marv. So thank you.
Thanks.